Yalan opened his eyes slowly, his vision blurry, his breath caught in his throat. Something warm pressed against his chest. He blinked again and froze. A girl, no, a stunning alien girl, was on top of him, straddling his body as if she had been there all night. Her skin was soft lavender, glowing faintly in the dim light of his cabin. 2 long silver strands of hair fell down across her shoulders, brushing his face gently as she leaned over him. She wasn't wearing the clothes of a worker, not even of a guest, just a thin robe, barely covering her alien figure. Yalan tried to sit up, but she pressed her hand gently on his chest. Her eyes were wide, not seductive, but frightened. Her other hand held a small blinking device near his heart. It beeped slowly, then changed color to green. "Good," she whispered. "Your heart is stabilizing." Yalan swallowed hard, still frozen. What are you doing?" he asked, his voice dry. She looked into his eyes, her lip trembling slightly. "I had to scan your vitals," she said. "You were in cardiac distress. You nearly died in your sleep." He stared at her, confused and alarmed. I don't understand," he said. "Who are you?" She sat back slightly, still sitting on his abdomen. "My name is Thalari," she said softly. "I'm your new housekeeper." Yalan blinked again. "My what?" She gestured to the open control panel at the side of the room. Her name was indeed on the registry, listed under Domestic Services Tier 1 Caregiver. "I didn't hire anyone," he said, sitting up slowly now. "I applied in secret." She said, "Forgive me, I altered the system." Yalan narrowed his eyes. "That's illegal." Thalari didn't deny it. "I didn't mean harm," she said. "I needed shelter, and you needed help, even if you didn't know it yet." He felt anger and confusion rise in his chest. "You hacked into my life," he said, "and you're telling me this like it's nothing." Thalari lowered her gaze. "I saved you," she whispered. "And I will leave if you want, but I had no other choice." He tried to stand, stumbling slightly as his legs touched the cold floor. His body felt weak, dizzy. She was telling the truth. His body had felt strange last night, a tightness in the chest, short breaths, but he had ignored it. He looked back at her. "How did you get in here?" "I bypassed the outer scan," she said. "I've done this before. Only once, but never to someone who needed me this badly." Yalan paused. "What do you want from me?" Thalari stood slowly, her bare feet soft on the metal floor. "I want nothing but a place to stay," she said. "I'll clean, I'll cook, I'll be quiet." Her voice softened even more. "But if you throw me out, I won't last the night." He narrowed his eyes. "Why?" Before she could answer, the emergency panel near the door flashed red. Someone was scanning the outside. "Security patrol," she whispered. "Looking for undocumented residents." Yalan turned toward her. "You're on the run." She looked at him with panic. "Please just say I'm your housekeeper." He hesitated for one long second, then nodded. "Get in the storage panel, go." She slipped inside without a sound, folding herself into the narrow space like she had done it 100 times before. A loud buzz echoed in the room. Yalan opened the door, facing 2 tall drones hovering outside. "Are you harboring unauthorized life forms?" one asked. "No," Yalan said calmly. "Just me and my registered housekeeper." The drone scanned the room, then turned and floated away. As the door closed, Thalari stepped out slowly, her hands shaking, her shoulders tight. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I owe you." Yalan looked at her again, really looked. She didn't seem like a liar or a thief or a spy, just tired and scared, and too graceful to belong on the streets. "You said I almost died," he asked again. "Why didn't you just let me?" She stepped close, placing the scanner in his hand. "Because my kind consents death and pain." She looked up, voice barely a whisper. "And last night, yours was calling to mine." Yalan stood silently, heart pounding again, but for a different reason this time. He didn't know who she really was, but this morning, his life had changed forever, and deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. Yalan couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he remembered Thalaria's voice whispering, "Your pain called to mine." What kind of creature says that? What kind of housekeeper scans your heart while straddling you in bed? And more importantly, what kind of stranger risks her life just to save yours? He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blinking scanner she'd left behind. It was alien tech, refined, compact, illegal on human colonies. That alone should have made him report her, but he didn't, because deep down, Yalin knew something was different about her. Something ancient, something broken, and still something kind. Outside his small window, the stars blinked cold and distant. Inside, Thalari was curled up in the corner like a lost pet, her robe wrapped tightly around her glowing lavender skin. She hadn't asked for food, water, or even a place to sleep. She just sat there, arms around her knees, like someone waiting for the end. In the silence, Yalin finally asked, "What are you?" Her head lifted slowly, silver hair falling to one side of her soft cheek. "I already told you," she said. "I'm your housekeeper." "Don't lie to me," he said, not cruelly but not kindly either. "I saw you dodge stun blasts like a soldier, and you handled that scanner like a doctor." He paused, watching her reaction. "You're not here to clean floors, are you?" Thalari looked away, her hands tightening. After a long moment, she finally spoke. "I'm not just from another planet," she said. "I'm from a project." Yalin frowned. "What kind of project?" She looked back at him, her eyes shining slightly in the dark. "They call us Myra synthetic hybrids, born from biomemory cells, designed to serve." She took a shaky breath. "But not in the way you think." Yalin leaned forward. "Then how?" Thalari stood slowly, walking toward the central light pad. She tapped it twice, and a small hologram flickered to life. It showed a network of glowing nerve lines, a brain, but not human. "Our creators designed us to bond with humans who had mental instability, emotional trauma, or loss." She looked at him. "Not just to help but to absorb pain." Yalin's eyes widened. "You mean you take people's pain into yourself?" "Yes," she said. "We mirror it, feel it, and stabilize it. That's why I said I felt your heart dying. I didn't hear it." She placed a hand on her chest. "I felt it here." He didn't know what to say. It sounded like magic or madness. "Is that why you sat on me like that?" he asked finally. Her face flushed a deep violet. "It was the only way to complete the imprint," she said softly. "My skin must touch your chest at the right frequency. And the reason you didn't ask," he said, voice dry. She lowered her head. "Because you would have said no." Yalin sighed, rubbing his temples. "So let me guess," he said. "You escaped your lab, your makers want you back, and now you're hiding by pretending to be a maid." Thalari nodded slowly. "They don't care if we die, they just want results." She took another step forward. "And I didn't want to die without knowing what it meant to choose someone." Yalin met her eyes again, and this time, something shifted in him. There was no act in her face, no mask, only someone desperately trying to live. "Why me?" he asked, voice quieter. "There are thousands of people on this colony." She stared at him. "Because you were the only one with the frequency." She held up the scanner again. "Your brain waves matched mine perfectly, like we were built to connect." Yalin shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to," she said. "But it's real." Just then, a soft chime echoed from the wall panel. A low-level alert security was sweeping Sector C again. Thalari's eyes widened. "If they find me, they'll take me back," she whispered. "And this time, they won't just erase my memory. They'll erase everything I became." Yalin stood up, walking past her to lock the outer door. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally he turned back to her. "You can stay for now." Eyes shimmered again, not with fear, but with something close to gratitude. She bowed her head slightly. "I'll earn my keep." Yalin shook his head. "You already saved my life, Thalari." He paused. "Just don't lie to me again." She nodded slowly, and for the first time that night, she smiled just a little. But that small smile would be the start of something much bigger, something that would change them both forever. The silence didn't last long. Just before dawn, while the stars still shimmered outside the colony dome, Yalan was jolted awake, not by sound, but by instinct. His implant buzzed faintly against his neck, the emergency frequency blinking. Thaleri was already up, standing by the air duct in her bare feet. Body tense like a hunted animal, she didn't speak, just pointed toward the wall console. Unauthorized surveillance initiated. Sector C tracking heat signatures. They found us, she whispered, her voice shaking but her hands steady. No, Yalan said, walking toward her. They're just scanning again, maybe a random sweep. But Thaleri shook her head. They don't scan this deep unless they've confirmed something. She looked him in the eye. They're here for me. Yalan's gut twisted. He didn't owe her anything, not really, and yet, something inside him had already accepted. Her, we have to run, she said suddenly, pulling open the floor panel by the bed. A narrow maintenance shaft led into the sub-tunnels beneath the colony's residential units. It was barely wide enough for one person. Yalan hesitated for only a second, then jumped down after her. The shaft was cold and dark, lit only by red backup strips. Their breathing echoed too loud in the tight space. Thaleri crawled ahead like she knew the path by heart. Yalan followed close, every heartbeat pounding in his ears like a drum. Behind them, the apartment exploded open with a loud crack. The security bots had bypassed the door. They're not going to arrest me, she said over her shoulder. They'll shut me down. What does that even mean? He asked, crawling fast. They'll drain my cortex, reprogram the imprint, and wipe everything connected to you. She turned and looked back at him, her voice trembling. They'll erase what I've become. They dropped down into a deeper chamber, a utility room filled with ancient pipes and humming power cables. Yalan helped her down as she winced from a twisted ankle. The floor was damp, the air thick with machine oil. Then, through the grate above, came the whirring sound of drones. They were scanning the levels below, moving slow like hunters that knew their prey was cornered. We can't go back to the lifts, Yalan said. They'll track our badges. Thaleri nodded, opening a hidden latch behind a broken pipe. Then we don't go up, we go deeper, Yalan blinked. Deeper. There's an old part of the colony abandoned since the expansion, she explained. No surveillance, no patrols. And why would you know that? He asked. Thaleri gave a small smile. I studied everything before I came to you. I didn't just pick you by luck. The tunnel opened into a wide cavern of rusted walls and broken lights. It smelled like dust and burned metal. Thaleri limped but kept moving forward, refusing to slow down. Suddenly, a high-pitched beep echoed behind them. Yalan turned just in time to see a flash of seeker drone, dropping through a shaft, targeting. Thaleri, down, he shouted, pushing her behind a collapsed pillar. The blast hit the ground where she stood just seconds ago. Leaving a black scorch mark, Thaleri stood up, eyes glowing with sudden fire. She pulled something from inside her robe, a crystal blade made of refracted light. What are you? Yalan began. Before he could finish, she spun toward the drone and threw the blade. It sliced clean through the metal, and the drone collapsed into pieces. Yalan stood stunned. You were trained, he whispered, not just as a caretaker, but as a weapon. Thaleri breathed hard, hands shaking. I didn't want you to see that, she said, voice breaking, but I couldn't let them take me. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room was filled with the distant buzz of more drones closing in. Then Yalan made his choice. He grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. We'll talk about it later, he said. Right now we survive. They ran together through the old corridors, passing forgotten chambers and flickering lights. Thaleri's breath grew more shallow, but she didn't complain. They stopped only when the air turned warmer, when a broken sign above read, Access to core archive, restricted. She looked at him with surprise. You found the old memory vault. Yalan pulled open the sealed hatch with a grunt. I didn't even know it was real. Inside, the room glowed with blue light. Memory drive still active after years of abandonment. And there on the main console, a file blinked to life. Project MIRA status. Active imprinted subject. Jalen R. Vale. Yalen stared at it, heart pounding. You weren't the only one who was chosen, he said quietly. Thalari looked at him with wide eyes. I didn't just find you, she whispered. You were meant for me. Yalen stood frozen. The glowing screen in front of him said things he didn't understand, but deep inside, something in him did. Project MIRA status active. Imprinted subject Jalen R. Vale. Why does it say my name? He whispered. Thalari stepped beside him, her voice trembling. Because your brain, your heart, your memories were always part of my design. He turned toward her, the soft blue light washing over her violet skin. That doesn't make sense, he said slowly. You said you chose me. I did, she replied. Gently, but the bond. It chose us both. The room felt heavier now, like the past was pressing into their bones. Old memory vaults lined the walls, thick cables crawling across the floor like roots of a dead tree. The air was warmer here, but the silence felt colder than ever. Thalari approached one of the dusty terminals, placing her hand on the interface. A pulse of light ran up her arm as the system recognized her. More files unlocked: footage, logs, experiment notes. Yalen stepped closer, watching as a video loaded. On the screen, a younger version of himself sat in a cold white lab, no older than 10. Wires connected to his head, doctors asking questions. He stared at the screen. Breath caught in his throat. I don't remember this, he said quietly. You weren't supposed to, Thalari said, her voice soft. They buried those memories to protect you. She looked down, ashamed. And to prepare me. Another file opened this time. It showed Thalari much younger, her body still forming in a glowing pod. A voiceover explained the imprint program. Each Myra will be bound to a chosen human subject, one who holds the target frequency for emotional sync. When that human reaches emotional collapse or isolation, the Myra will be activated. Yalen stepped back. You're telling me I was engineered to need you? No, she said quickly, eyes pleading. You were never forced to feel anything. You were just the signal. She took a step closer, and I followed it. Yalen didn't know what to feel. He thought the connection he felt was real, something chosen, not scripted. But now he wondered if everything was artificial. He turned away, but Thalari placed her hand gently on his. I never wanted you to find out this way, she whispered. But I didn't come to control you. Yalen, I came to know you. He looked down at her hand, trembling slightly against his own. You said you felt my pain, he said. How? Thalari hesitated, then slowly, she placed her hand to the side of his head. A low hum vibrated in the air. And suddenly, he saw it. Not a memory, but a mirror. A field of white space, echoes of voices, shadows of his parents' death, his long years alone on distant outposts, the silence that crawled into his chest and never left. He saw it all because she saw it too. When he pulled back, there were tears in her eyes. You carry more than you show, she whispered. That's why I came. Not to clean your floors, but to carry the weight you hid from yourself. Yalen looked at her again, really looked. This wasn't just a program. This wasn't fake. He could feel her heartbeat now, matching his. Two different lives woven together by a fate neither of them asked for, but now couldn't deny. Just then, a deep rumble echoed through the vault, a tremor beneath the floor, followed by a sharp hiss. They've tracked the energy surge, Thalari said. The vault's old systems. They broadcasted when they woke. Yalen glanced around, eyes landing on a broken elevator shaft. Can we climb? He asked. Thalari nodded. If we're lucky. It leads to the cargo tunnels. They began climbing quickly, the walls narrow, their hands gripping rusted bars. Halfway up, Thalari slipped, but Yalen caught her wrist just in time. Still think I was designed for this? He asked with a smile. She looked up, holding tightly to him. No, she whispered. You were always stronger than they ever planned. They reached the upper hatch, pushing it open into a wide tunnel filled with forgotten crates and old freight trains. The path ahead was unclear, but they had no choice but to keep moving. As they walked, Yalin looked over at her. I don't know what this bond is, he said, but it feels real. Thalari nodded. Because it is, and in that quiet moment, surrounded by rust and silence and danger closing in, something unspoken passed between them, not programming, not command, just the first flicker of something stronger than either expected trust. The cargo tunnel was cold, the air smelled like dust and metal, and every sound echoed for miles. Yalin walked ahead, his eyes scanning for signs of drones. Thalari followed closely, but her steps were slower now, heavier. She was shivering. Her arms hugged her chest, her breath leaving faint clouds in the air. Yalin stopped and turned around. You okay? He asked. She tried to smile, but her lips were turning pale violet. My body. It wasn't made for this temperature, she said softly. Our kind runs hot. We weren't designed to survive below 10 degrees. Yalin cursed it under his breath. They were still at least 2 levels below the surface. No heating units, no supplies, just cold tunnels and abandoned freight systems. Come here, he said, reaching into his jacket. He pulled out his emergency blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders. But she still trembled. It's not enough, she whispered. I can't hold warmth unless... She paused, her eyes flickering toward him, embarrassed. Unless I touch a compatible heat source. Yalin raised an eyebrow. You mean? Me, she nodded slowly. We call it fusion rest, she said. It's a temporary bonding protocol meant for survival. He hesitated. Not because he didn't want to, but because something about the moment felt too real, too fast. Will it hurt? He asked quietly. No, she said. But it might. Reveal things. Before he could ask what that meant, she reached for his hand. Her skin was ice cold now, and her fingers trembled as they touched his. Yalin looked around, then guided her to an empty freight crate in the corner. They stepped inside together, the metal walls echoing softly as they settled close. She sat between his legs, her back against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her, feeling the trembling begin to slow. Her body slowly warmed as she leaned into him, her breathing deeper now, steadier. But then something strange happened. A faint pulse traveled through his arms from her skin to his chest, like a hum, like a whisper in the bloodstream. Thalari closed her eyes. It's starting, she said softly. Our thoughts may overlap. Don't fight it. Yalin didn't speak, but in the quiet that followed, images flooded his mind. He saw her past her escape from the lab, the pain of being called property. The night she slept hidden beneath power grids, just to avoid capture. Then, her first moment seeing his name on the screen. How her heart jumped. How her fingers trembled when she realized the one human her body was designed for still lived. I didn't choose to be born, her voice whispered inside his mind. But I chose you. Yalin felt something crack inside his chest, not in pain, but in understanding. He had been alone for years, floating through life without connection. Now this alien girl who called herself a maid had become his heartbeat. Her body had stopped shivering now, but she didn't pull away. She stayed wrapped in his arms, as if the world outside no longer existed, and for a brief moment, it didn't. Why does this feel like more than survival? He whispered in her ear. Thalari tilted her head back slightly, her glowing eyes meeting his. Because bonding doesn't lie, she said gently. Our bodies may have been designed, but this feeling is real. Yalin looked at her face, so alien, yet so heartbreakingly human in emotion. You're not just a housekeeper, he said softly. You're a mirror. She smiled, her fingers gently resting on his hand. Then let's reflect something worth keeping. The lights flickered above them, a warning that power in the lower tunnels was failing outside. The drone frequency started rising again. They were still being tracked. But inside that crate, wrapped together like lost stars finding orbit, they both knew the bond was complete. Now not by protocol, not by programming, but by choice. I'll protect you, Yalin whispered. Valerie leaned her head against his shoulder. And I'll never leave you. Outside, the hunt continued, but inside. They had already won something worth more than freedom. The world felt different when Yalin woke up. Not because of where they were, but because of who he was now. Valerie was still asleep, her head on his chest, her breath rising slow and warm. And in that soft moment, Yalin remembered something strange. A dream, or was it more? He saw a little girl, blue-skinned with silver eyes, standing in a white lab. She looked at him through a glass wall. Her tiny hand pressed against it, and he heard her whisper, "I'll find you again." His eyes flew open. That wasn't just a dream. It felt real, too real. He sat up slowly, careful not to wake Valerie. His heart pounded in his chest, louder than any drone or alarm ever had. How could he remember something like that? How could that memory exist if he'd never seen her before 2 days ago? Valerie stirred and looked up, blinking softly. "You saw something, didn't you?" she asked. Voice still sleepy, he didn't answer. She sat up beside him, brushing her hair from her face. "You saw the lab," he turned to her sharply. "That girl in the dream was you." Valerie nodded slowly. "They let us see our bonded subjects during early development," she whispered. "Only for a few moments, but our minds, they imprint more than just data." Yalin stood, pacing inside the crate. "That means I was there," he said. "Not just once, multiple times." "You were part of the trial group," Valerie said gently. "But your brain resisted the programming. They said you were a failed match." Yalin stopped and turned. "So they erased it," she nodded. "They didn't want a child remembering what it felt like to be chosen by a creature." He sank to the floor, his hands covering his face. His whole life, he'd felt hollow, like something was missing. Now he knew. It was her. "I wasn't supposed to survive," he said, his voice shaking. "My parents died in a shuttle crash, and I was left alone on a mining colony." He looked up at her. "But the pain, the emptiness, it wasn't just grief. It was you being pulled away from me." Valerie reached out and touched his cheek. "And I felt it too," she said. "For years, I thought it was a malfunction, random ache, sadness I couldn't explain." She smiled softly. "But it was always you. Even before I found your name again." Yalin held her hand in his. "Everything they tried to erase came back the moment we touched." She nodded. "Because a true bond doesn't die, it just sleeps outside." A distant hum reminded them danger still hunted nearby. But Yalin didn't care anymore. Not about the drones, not about the protocols, not even about the lies. He looked at her, not as an alien, not as a stranger, but as the missing piece of his soul returned. "Then it's time I stopped running from what I am," he said, standing tall. "If I was part of that project, I want the rest of my file. I want to know everything." Valerie stepped beside him. "I know where it is," she whispered. "There's a hidden node near the central memory core of the colony. It's off-grid, unlinked from command systems." He nodded. "Then we go there." She looked at him, her eyes serious now. "If we do this, there's no going back." Yalin reached for her hand. "I don't want to go back," he said. "Not to loneliness, not to questions, not to a life without you." Valerie's lip trembled slightly, but she smiled through it. "I was designed to serve, but I never imagined I'd be loved." "You weren't built to serve," he said. "You were born to feel." They stepped out of the crate, into the dark tunnel once more. But this time, the cold didn't bite, because something warm pulsed between them, now deeper than skin, stronger than fear. And as they walked toward the memory core, hand in hand, the truth inside him finally had a name. It was her. The memory core towered like a forgotten god in the middle of the old colony. It was built before drones, before synthetic laws, before emotions were rewritten by science. Yalin and Valerie stood at the sealed entrance, wind brushing through the broken metal leaves of the past. "You sure this is it?" Yalan asked, his voice quiet. Thalari nodded, her hand trembling slightly as she raised her palm to the old scanner. The door lit up, not in red, not in green, but white. It recognized her. It remembered her. And that terrified her more than anything. As the doors slid open, the room pulsed with a soft glow. Rows of ancient machines hummed like sleeping giants. In the center stood a single console labeled in both human and alien code. Mira Primary Core Access. Yalan stepped forward. He placed his hand on the reader, and the room shifted. Lights flickered. Files began opening on their own, not just about her, but about him. Thalari stood beside him, watching the screen scroll. Yalan Arvale, she read softly. Subject: emotionally unstable, high trauma retention. Genetically ideal for empathy bonding. Yalan clenched his fists. They made me into a perfect vessel for pain, he muttered. They didn't want to help me, they wanted to use me. He looked at her. And they made you to carry it. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. We weren't just made for pain, she said. We were made to heal it. Suddenly, the core glitched. A red alert flashed. Unauthorized bond detected, defense systems activated. Panels opening. In the floor, old security bots crawling out like mechanical spiders. Thalari gasped. They're going to wipe the system. They think our connection is corruption. Yalan grabbed a broken panel from the wall like a shield. No more running, he said, standing in front of her. We fight. The bots closed in. Tasers charging. But Thalari stepped forward, eyes glowing brighter than ever before. No, she whispered. We bond. She wrapped her arms around Yalan from behind, her forehead pressed to his back. The machines paused, detecting a new surge. The white light of the core pulsed once, then twice, then flooded the entire chamber. A shockwave burst through the room, not of violence, but memory. Every screen lit up with their shared experiences, their pain, their healing, their connection. The machines stopped. They backed down, folding into the floor like obedient pets. The room fell silent again, but now the console displayed new text. Mira protocol complete, override accepted. Independent bond confirmed, subject status equal. Yalan turned, eyes wide. What just happened? Thalari looked exhausted but smiled. We weren't meant to be master and tool, she said softly. But equals. You rewrote the program. He whispered. No, she said, holding his hand. We did. As they stepped out of the core, sunlight broke through the ceiling for the first time in years. A shaft of gold light landed on their faces, and for the first time since the story began, Yalan smiled without pain. Word of what happened spread fast. Some feared it, some studied it, but most admired it. A man and a girl, once broken by design, now whole by choice. They didn't hide anymore. They lived in the open, not as owner and servant, but as bonded souls. He'd built a home with his own hands. She filled it with warmth no program could fake, and sometimes, just sometimes, she'd wake him up sitting on his chest, like that very first morning, only this time she laughed softly and said, "Still breathing?" And he would reply with a smile, "Only because you're here," because the girl who entered his life as a fugitive maid left it as something more, a partner, a mirror, a destiny.